Welcome back. This is Fantastic Pains and How We Hide Them. I'm not Chris.
And I'm not Karina.
But we're here with friends today. Once more. And we're very excited.
We have to care. Okay, so I'll say I'm not Summer, and then you'll.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm not Summer.
And I'm not Lulu.
Cool. So okay, everybody, that means that I'm Lulu and she's Summer.
Yes.
Cool.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Good. Now that we've established
Everyone has a
who's
role.
not who,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not any of these three
Process
people.
by elimination.
It's confusing. I know. I don't.
It's one of those really obnoxious riddles where it's like, Dan was
Who's
here on
lying?
Wednesday, but on Friday, so was Susie.
Yeah.
Wait,
Like if
so
I
was Susie?
if I
What the
said
fuck?
But what
I'm
about
lying,
Thursday?
Right.
Anyway, in Argentina, we've got some shit happening.
Yeah.
You figure it out.
wonderful. If this is your very first time joining us, welcome to the madness. It's gonna get crazy because it always gets crazy, and that's the way we like it, and it's never gonna change. So, sit down.
Wait, can we call ourselves the Fantastic Pains 4?
Yeah.
We are now.
Oh my god.
I'll be the Thing. Is that
That's not one of them.
what's his name?
I don't.
The weird rock
I know
dude?
you want to be the thing, but it's gonna seem like we picked that for you.
Yeah. No, I understand. That's why I went for it.
Damn it.
I'll just be Captain America. It's fine.
Cool.
He's also not one of them.
Well, that was obvious.
No, the actor.
What is the rock looking dude? Not Dwayne
It's
Johnson.
the actor, isn't it?
The
Am I
stone
wrong?
guy.
No, you're right.
Okay. Is that? I don't know who did it. I wanted to
That is
say
the thing.
Batista, but that's not right.
That is the thing.
That is the thing.
I was fucking right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So I'll be that.
Invisible Woman
Yes.
Thanks.
and the stretchy,
Stretchy. One.
The guy
terrible guy
Yeah.
who's played by
awful.
my boy
He's awful.
in the movie. My brain shut off.
Is the other one
Holy
played
crap.
by Kate Mara? We have Kate Mara left, right? You can be
no,
Kate Mara.
no, it's
No.
from the
Kate
Eye.
Mara's in.
Who was it from the Eye? She was like really popular for a long time.
Jessica Alba.
Yes,
Yeah.
there we go.
Related to Idris?
Not even spelled the same.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about pop
There-
culture.
Same-
Me neither.
Same family, different clans.
Oh, okay.
Different
Cool.
clans.
Got it.
Like the
They've-
It's like Simon and
Skarsgård
Garfunkel.
brothers.
Yeah.
They're not related at all, but people think they
Uh-huh.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not?
No, they have different last names. Anyway, that's
Damn.
not what. That's not what.
I think we went through enough
about.
info. Let's wrap it up.
If you've decided you like the madness and you want to check us out on other platforms, Chris, where can they find us?
I don't know, TikTok.
That's it.
That's all I want to plug is the TikTok because I'm
Great.
really proud of the TikTok.
Great.
It's been doing
The
well.
TikTok is really good.
I mean, we're
Check
also
it out.
like on.
It's funny. It's dumb. It makes me laugh.
Yeah,
It's great. It's a good time.
we're also on Spotify and
Yep.
other podcast platforms except for Apple.
Never Apple.
No, never.
Mm-mm. Shame.
TikTok is the
And
only
And
social
YouTube.
media that you can put the behind and it doesn't sound like you're
The
85 years
TikTok.
old.
Yeah.
It's the YouTubes. Yeah, so check us out. YouTube, you can watch us. If you're tired of looking at our faces, you can listen to us on most platforms. We also have a Discord.
Yeah.
So check us out there. It's a good time, full of really lovely people and good support and fun and nonsense. You can also, from the TikTok, jeez Louise, from the Discord, you can join us Fridays for lives.
Oh, yeah.
And then Saturdays, you can sit in and listen to the recordings, which is
Live.
great.
Yeah.
And participate
Yeah.
on occasion. So
I gotta start doing that.
it's fun times.
Gotta start
Good
doing
stuff. Beyond that, I think we're good to go. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sweet.
Hooray.
Yeah. Well, hold on. We're gonna pause to shill.
Shit.
Am I shilling or are you shilling? I don't have the notes in front of me. I forgot what it is.
I don't know what it is. I was just gonna say we're shilling the PayPal, and it's gonna be linked in the description.
In the description and on screen.
Yes. So if you don't get Chris his $1,000, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I need that 1,000
the
in my
sharks are gonna
Venmo.
come for him,
by Friday.
but not PayPal. Venmo.
God, please. My cat. He's gonna do something.
I mean,
It's
really,
my
it's,
cat.
if you want to buy coffee for us, you can donate.
There you
Pretty
go.
much
That's
it.
a good one.
That's wholesome
Yeah.
and obfuscating the truth.
What I
Just
told
enough,
What I
right?
told Summer yesterday was we will never ever say no to coffee.
Right.
So if you want to buy us coffee, good on you. Thank
Mhm.
you. We appreciate it. Beyond that, I guess that it is time for the weekly recap.
Check in.
Here we go.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Mine was easy.
Yeah.
I did nothing. I had like horrible fatigue all week to the point where I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days.
Yeah. You're still missing your Concerta.
Oh yeah, no, it's coming back tomorrow.
Yay.
Yay.
You're going to have energy again.
I mean, I do now, but that's because I'm on other stimulants.
Kofi.
Kofi.
Kofefe.
I've had so much caffeine this morning.
Yeah, he was like chugging Pepsis before I got here.
I needed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was asleep on the couch when you got here.
Yeah. He was having a nap because I
didn't
was
want to
late.
nap.
Like a sucker.
But yeah, it's all week was fatigue.
Yeah.
Except for, yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday we hung and we did the live.
Yeah, yesterday I saw Anna in the morning.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I finally saw Anna. Hi, Anna.
Yeah.
She
Oh my gosh.
watches.
So Anna, well, we have to explain. who
Okay,
Anna
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna wave for.
She's my
any-
psychologist.
Oh, okay.
She's really, really cool, actually.
She's wonderful. We like her a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
She was checking us out and she said that what we do is really important.
Yeah, and she loved it, and that we were inviting.
Yeah. It was weird to hear a bunch of compliments about it. I was like, shut up.
It's always weird.
Stop.
We get comments sometimes, and we're like, "This is
Yeah.
too much."
I still
must
wanna
have
try-
scammed you.
I want to try and get her on still. 'Cause
Yeah.
She said she would.
I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
That
And
would be
then
good.
let's see, I did that, got complimented, blushed really hard, went home. Oh, raid day. It was raid day in Destiny.
Yep, and it didn't go well.
It did not.
for anybody.
No.
It was kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Big bummer. But I mean, it was good. I had
Yeah.
fun. It's just everyone else didn't.
Yeah.
Like,
Everyone else was had. It was just.
I
a
could have fun
time.
if everyone's suffering, not because they're suffering, just as we're all suffering. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm happy to be here with friends, and everyone
Yeah.
else is like, we're not getting it done, and I'm like, but
Oh.
it's friendship.
Let the friendship flow through you.
Yeah. So I mean, it was fun for me.
Yeah.
Not great. And then we lived.
Yep.
We lived.
We lived. It was fun.
We lived.
It was a good time
Mhm.
for everybody, all the time, forever. Oh, we shot some shorts.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I'll probably release those on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or the one
Probably Wednesday before this.
Wednesday before this. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
already out.
So they're
Link.
already out. Maybe
And it takes.
have linkies.
Yeah.
It'll be in description. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. We're just all
Everyone's holding it.
Everyone
Yeah.
hold the thing.
Well, so
Yes.
it's gonna be a chopped up. It's gonna be as inconvenient.
It's just gonna go
as
all over the
possible.
place.
Yeah. It's gonna be like I'll get the slash part and then some of the other
We're
shit.
gonna turn into a grid, and you
I'm
have
gonna
to
do a
click
bunch
on
of tracking.
everything that's
model the
not
room
a
in 3D.
microphone.
And I waited until all y'all put your hands down, and then I was like, okay, so here's the missing piece.
Yes.
There
This
you
is
go.
the important one.
You have to keep watching if you want to keep up with the jokes. It's great. Yeah. Oh, my turn then, huh?
Yeah. Your turn.
I am on leave from work because I am a mess. We talked about that a little bit last week, I think.
Yeah.
But I was supposed to go back tomorrow, being the 29th, Monday. But I am taking 3 more days because court dates got pushed back for nonsense with workman's comp. And they've been awful, but the lawyers are handling it, and that feels so much better to not have to like
Do
worry
their
about
job.
it. Yeah. And then my husband's truck was stolen this week. It was great.
Out of a shop, not like.
Yeah, out of the shop. And I'm not even saying like it was in a parking lot and they took it. No, it was in the locked garage. They cut the fencing to get in, broke into the garage, broke into the truck through the window, hot-wired the truck, and then drove it through the garage door and through the chain link fence.
Some movie shit.
And also inconvenient.
Yeah, none
Right?
of that.
That's
like,
what I was saying. I was like, that's bold. Like, that's not like I stole a car off the side of the road. No, this is like you had to go through some like actual effort
Mm-hmm.
to
That's
do
like
that.
heist level, like
That's
Right.
like going
Yeah.
for the platinum trophy shit.
Just
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
as inconvenient and difficult as possible
Yeah.
on purpose.
But that's my life. Like, remember, I don't know if I've talked about it, like rolling snake eyes
Yeah.
again and again and again.
Mhm.
So I just keep getting like the least likely options in life and then rolling for it. And they're like, yep, everything is going to happen all at once forever. So
Love that movie.
fun.
I haven't seen it. I've heard it's good. Anyway, sorry.
My life is a typo. What else happened? That was a big one.
Yeah.
Oh, I had the end of the pain group,
Oh yeah.
and that was meh.
I mean,
Meh.
the whole experience was meh.
Well, because I was ahead of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I've already learned these skills either by myself or in therapy previously.
Mhm.
And so then at the end, but there is somebody who's been reaching out to me and found it apparently like really useful. And again, with the whole like, oh, it's nice to like have people who understand. And so I keep inviting her to like the Discord. I'm like, just come check out the Discord. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Because she was really struggling, and they were talking about giving her ketamine last I heard.
Wow. Okay.
So she's like, what do you do for pain? I was like, I have a bunch of meds, and then I have rescue meds because I don't want to be on something all the time.
Yeah.
That's just not how I want to live my life. But yeah, so it's been a hell of a week, and I don't like it. Oh, and then I had like a 9 out of 10 day.
Oh yeah. You.
Like bad. I hit 9 out of 10 like 3 days ago on the pain scale, and it was just like spasms started, and it was like thrashing and writhing and just absolutely awful. And then of course I had therapy with my pain psychologist.
Oh, yeah.
And that sucked. It sucked because then she was just basically like, oh yeah, you're in pain because you're not doing enough self-care, and you're fatigued because you're not doing enough self-care. And I'm like,
Basically just self-care.
and I'm like,
Self-care.
you don't understand the like multifacetedness of what is going on inside of my body at all times. And then she was talking about dislocations in this really like,
I was gonna say like you
Dismissive
gotta
way.
get to the.
yeah, it was like, because I was like, I don't like to sit down a lot. She was talking about pacing, right? And I've been better at pacing. I have been doing a good job of pacing. Like I will do like partial tasks
Yeah.
and then take a break and then come back to it. Or I will like pause between doing tasks and take a break and come back to it. I've been doing a good job pacing. And then she was just basically like, well, you need to like sit and fully relax during the day, like 2 to 3 times during the day. And I have EDS, and relaxation is the enemy.
Well, example. Yesterday I did that. I laid down for an hour and dislocated both my hips.
Yep.
They both slid out because I
Yeah.
was laying on my back.
Well, and I explained to her, I was like, literally, I wake up in the night and I have to relocate things.
Yeah.
Yesterday or last night was elbows. Like
Ooh.
my elbows were in so much pain over the night. Like, you know, when you're like, you're sleeping in a cold room and your knees hurt that
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
It was that, but with my elbows.
Oh.
It was awful. Ooh.
Yeah, that sounds so unpleasant.
Mhm.
So I had to relocate them like twice in the middle of the night, and that sucked. But I'm like, you do not understand. Relaxation is the enemy.
Well, and the way
And
you
she's like,
worded
you
it
need to relax more.
is that people are like dismissive of
Yes.
us dislocating because we do it so easily.
Yeah.
But it's like it still hurts.
Right. They like, it's this weird like, oh, you have EDS. It's just dislocations. And you're like, excuse me, just
Yeah.
because I don't break my bones when they dislocate.
Well, it's really interesting. Like that people can have that opinion, but then you go into the ER,
Mhm.
and if you want to relocate something, they're like, "You're gonna
it's
need
like
morphine.
a 4-man team.
We need like 6 people to
Yeah.
hold you down while we set your arm."
Yeah.
Like it's a huge deal.
No.
Yeah.
It's because they like learn about subluxations, and they're like, oh, it's a partial dislocation.
Mhm.
And it doesn't hurt clearly because you do it all the time. And then that's also happening with like work, because if anybody else went out on leave, it would be a big deal. It would be a big deal, and people would be freaked out. But because it's me and I am a continual dumpster fire, nobody gives a shit.
Do you want more tea about you? Is that you want more people to talk about you?
Well, no, it's just the like, it's that same thing
Yeah.
with like, oh, being uncomfortable all the time is your baseline, therefore it's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
could
I'm
talk
like,
about that
no,
all
dude.
day.
Yeah.
Just because my life is on fire all the time doesn't mean that it doesn't suck that it's
Right.
on fire all the time.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it. It's not fun.
Right.
So I took 3 more days because I need to. But yeah, it was not a nice week for like therapy at all, because I really thought I was gonna need it, because I'd been coming to like some pretty heavy realizations,
Yeah.
and we didn't even get to talk about it because it was really like a half hour of her being like, self-care, breathing exercises, fully relax, the self-care. Are you doing imagery? You need to be doing guided imagery. And I'm like, I'm not anxious. Because she's also harping on that part where it's like, clearly you have anxiety. And I'm like, but I don't.
I love how anxiety's the catch-all.
Yeah.
Always.
It really is.
Always. Literally always. And I'm like, I'm not anxious. And she's like, well, stress affects EDS. And I was like, great. Yes, I'm constantly stressed out. but like I'm constantly stressed out.
I mean,
so-
EDS also causes stress.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work that way. Being in pain doesn't make you like unhappy.
Well,
It's your unhappiness that's making you be
the
in
beginning
pain.
of your week was actually really good.
Yeah.
Like you were at a place where you thought you could like relax,
Yes.
and then everything hit.
Well, and that's the frustrating part is like
Mhm.
I was like unfurling like a little butterfly coming out of the cocoon.
yeah.
And then had to like take in this metaphorical deep breath. And then the next morning the truck was gone.
So what I needed to do, I'm gonna go back in time because Randy called me in the morning, right?
Oh yeah.
So
'Cause
he
I was
didn't want to wake
asleep.
up Karina,
Mhm.
but he reached out, which was fantastic. He's
Yeah.
like, I need to talk to
He
somebody.
was
Something's
really
going on.
upset.
And he talked to me. What I should have done is had like some sort of 80s movie plot where we try and hide the fact that the truck is gone and then go on a misadventure to find the truck. But then we can't find it and we try getting the same truck, but it's
You
different.
got to replace it.
And then it's like a buddy comedy.
Yeah.
and then film the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll make millions.
Well, or like, a couple dollars.
Right? There you go. Yeah, that PayPal. It's gonna fund our misadventures.
Yeah,
And
if you
the-
want this movie to happen.
And
Hey,
the missing
Just
truck.
saying. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the
Right.
missing
If
truck.
it
There's a
starts
missing
with
truck.
miss, you're good. You can pay for it.
The misadventures of the missing truck. Yeah. So yeah, my life is still on fire and probably will be for always, but like things are okay socially as far as like my relationships are going right now, which is really nice to have like feeling stable in my relationships. So that's been good. But
Yeah.
it's just crazy all the time forever.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was my week. Fun times.
Now, do we give you guys like a month?
Right?
When was the last time
It's
we
like
had-
recap.
It was
What's
on, like,
going on?
Yeah,
months
it's
ago?
been a few months.
Yeah.
Cliff notes?
Do you want to go or me?
I'll go first because
Okay.
I feel like my week was not too crazy, but like stuff did happen.
Oh.
So
Mhm.
back in action, just like the Looney Tunes said for school.
Mhm.
This is like the second week of classes, so things are like finally starting to settle in a little bit.
The honeymoon is over.
The honeymoon is over, which is great, and it also means it's time for fall flu
Naughtiness.
season.
Oh no.
So we had a couple kids that were sick earlier in the week, and then Wednesday, I woke up and first of all, Tuesday I think it was Tuesday, I finally got through to radiology because
Yeah.
radiology with Kaiser was a bit like super backed up, and I finally got through to somebody. And she was like, we have no appointments until January, according to this, but
What
I don't
the-
think that's right. And
Yeah,
I was
no.
like, I can't stay on the phone because I have to go teach, but could you, like, the first thing that you can find, like, I
Mhm.
don't care when it is, just give it to me. And then she ended up calling back and she's like, can you come in on September 6th? And I was like, yeah. Yep, put me down.
Yep.
So then I had to run down and be like, I am going to leave early that day. I need to just do that. Like, that's just what's going to end up happening because I need to figure out what's going on with my body.
Yeah.
So I was jazzed about being able to do that. Then Wednesday, I woke up and I threw up. But the fun thing about me, and you can attest to this, is like I throw up very frequently.
Yeah.
So it's a fun game of like, are we throwing up because we're anxious? Are we throwing up because of like a POTS thing that's happening where like stuff is super not regulated? Are we throwing up because we're sick? What's going on? So I threw up once and then I was like, I'll just go to school. So then I got in the car and I was driving
Mhm.
and then I threw up in the car on the way there.
No.
I had a bag. It was fine.
Okay.
It wasn't that big of a deal.
Good.
I mean, it was, but like it was fine. So then I got to the school and I went inside and I was like, I don't feel good. And then I sat at my desk and put my head down. And then I got up and I like ran past one of our coworkers and he was like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm going to throw up. And he was like, okay. So then I did that.
Have fun.
And then I
Take luck.
went back to my classroom and put my head back down and I was like, I should leave. So then I went and asked another coworker. I was like, hey, is violently throwing up 3 times reason for to leave?
Enough. Yeah.
And he was like, I can't decide that for you, but I feel like yeah. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna go. So then I went home and slept for the rest of the day, and when I wasn't sleeping I was throwing up, which was
Aw.
really fun. Lulu took very good care of me and checked on me frequently to make sure I wasn't dying. I had a fever, which is always makes it way worse.
Yeah.
Um,
You're like, let me just hallucinate while I'm throwing
And
up.
it
Yeah.
broke like 3 times during the day.
yeah, it
Oh.
kept breaking and then it would come back. So I kept thinking I was in the clear, and then it would spike back up again, which was super fun. And then I was fine, and that was Wednesday, and then I went to work on Thursday, and it was like I still had some of the achies, but it was an okay week as far as that all goes. My grandfather has COVID,
Ugh.
which is super fun. My dad tried to explain like vaccines to me on the phone,
Oh no.
which was nothing. And then I had a small meltdown because when I went to the neurologist the first time, she was like, we should get you an MRI, which is what I just scheduled. She was like, we should get you an MRI to make sure that it's not MS. It's not, it's probably not, but we need to like double check. But then I was having like bad tinglies, so I Googled it. Don't Google anything ever. Anytime you experience something, do not Google it, because it was like, MS. And then I was like, what
You're
if I
dying.
have MS? And then I was full tilt in like a meltdown about it while in the bubble bath. And then I was like, okay, but if I do have MS, crying about it now is not going to make that go away. So I was able to like get myself out of that, which was good.
Well, update us on what they suspected, because this was all like breakthrough stuff.
Yes.
Because up until this point, what was the diagnosis?
So the diagnosis for me has always been, oh, you just have an anxiety disorder,
Mhm.
and that's
And
kind of the end of
conversion.
it.
Convert, yeah.
And then when I was a senior in high school, it was conversion syndrome, but we don't
Mhm.
really know what that is or means, and it just kind of means we don't have a diagnosis for you.
All the symptoms that you have, that's what that is.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
all in your head.
Yeah.
And the end.
And then now it's, oh, they're actually non-epileptic seizures, so you can call them that. Plus it's panic, plus it might be POTS on
Mhm.
top of it.
Yep.
So that's where we currently are. But the problem is, I also have been diagnosed with, I forget what it's called.
Oh, it's the like you're too aware of your body
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Basically a
Which
disorder
is another
that's-
way of being like,
that's all about the fact that I'm too aware of any like twinge I feel in my body.
Mhm.
Is that related to autism? Or is that more of like a...
They don't know, and also the more that I'm looking into that as a diagnosis, the more that that's turning out to be like a
it's another. I feel like it's another like cop out diagnosis.
it's a cop-out diagnosis, because it immediately is a diagnosis that turns into, oh, then I can't trust my own judgment of what's happening in my body.
it's a medical way of saying that you're a hypochondriac.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite of hypochondria, because she was like, you could be feeling these things, but you're feeling them too much. And I was like, so I shouldn't be trusting the fact that I know that something's wrong with me?
Right.
And the more that I'm looking into that, the more that I'm like, I don't super like that that's a thing that I was...
No.
Because I already, like, don't trust my own
Mhm.
input. Like, I already have to ask. Like,
Right.
Very
like,
frequently.
Is throwing up enough of a reason to go home, please?
very frequently, I'm asking Karina, or I'm asking Lulu, or I'm asking Bestie Danny, like, hey, is this,
I'm
like, a
not your
reason...
It's
What?
fine. Continue. It's fine. I'm not
Is-
your bestie.
You are my bestie, but you're also my
I
life
know.
partner.
Keep talking.
But, like, I'm constantly asking, like, hey, is this enough of a reason to, like, need to take a break or need to sit down?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I can't
Right.
just, like, I have to justify everything that I do, which is part of today's topic. But,
Yeah.
like, so that, it was a very big week for feeling like I have to double explain everything and convince people that I am chronically ill
yeah.
in a couple
Mhm.
different ways. And, like, the fact that I'm chronically ill, just because I'm appear to be functional,
Mhm.
does not mean that it is easy for me to exist every day.
Well, and it was one of those like I think I suspected POTS before you did, because I
Yes.
was like, this doesn't seem like conversion. This is a real thing that's really happening, and you're lining up with what's happening in my body according to like barometrics and the weather.
Yes.
And so I was like, are you sure?
And it's one of those things where, like, and then when I had the call from the doctor after that test, she was like, we're just going to keep going as though it is POTS. And I was like, great. This is the first time any doctor has taken any of this seriously at all, because like the thing that happens, and this seems to be a pretty universal experience, is once you are diagnosed with anxiety or they suspect that you have some kind of anxiety disorder, suddenly everything is the anxiety disorder.
Yes.
Like the anxiety disorder is making you nauseated. The anxiety disorder is making you dizzy. And it's like, maybe sometimes, but also there's something very serious going on in my body.
Yeah.
And it's not being listened to or cared for.
Well, and that's the thing. Like when I was learning about it all at the beginning, and they kept telling me they were panic attacks, and I was like, okay, but the feelings come first, and then the panic, because I don't know what's happening to me.
Yes.
And it's hard to like
And the panic
get them to differentiate that. You're like, the panic is secondary.
And the panic is rational.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's the whole thing.
It's
That's
a
the other
secondary
part of
reaction.
it is trying to justify that not knowing what's going on with your body would make anybody upset.
Uh-huh.
But then it turns into, well, but what if nothing's actually going on in your body? What if you're making it up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That would be equally upsetting, or more upsetting even. Yeah.
So that was my week. It wasn't terrible, but I am definitely still feeling the lingering, like, I was sick earlier this week and I'm trying to play catch up. And also my back hurts and I've got like weird tinglies in this arm. So I don't know.
I'm gonna try to pop you at the break.
It's gonna
and
be
see what
amazing.
happens. Oh, I forgot to mention I had to get fluids twice this month.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I've had 3 bags of fluids in 2.5 weeks.
Fantastic. I've been chugging Gatorade like a monster, especially with how like, because we are in weather changing time right now.
Yes, and it's awful.
And it's just so like it's very pleasant as a concept because I'm like, oh, we can use the rain, and then I'm like, ow, yeah, joints hurt though.
Yep.
So I've been just chugging Gatorade like an absolute
Lunatic.
disaster person.
Yes.
So that was my week. What about you, Lou? How was your week?
So, my week's been a solid okay. Yeah, I mean, the big thing is I'm not at home. I'm at my parents' house. They're out, so I'm dog sitting.
Oh, okay.
And
No, we broke up and I kicked her out.
It's like,
This is how we find out.
no, so I mean, it's been good to dog sit, and it's also been good to remind myself that like I am so much happier not at my parents' house.
Yeah.
Not even with trauma, but just with like, I mean, certainly with trauma, but also with like being self-sustaining and
Yeah.
right, like
being in like my own
independent.
place.
Yeah.
Something threw a wrench in that. It sucks as a trans woman when your paranoia about your neighborhood is confirmed, because on the way
Oh.
up, when I was picking them up, I heard some dude like listening to music and was like, "Whoa, what the fuck? That's a guy." And I was like,
Oh.
"Ugh." So that sucks. And then it's, you know, this morning I've been having to think about like how low, like how much lower my standard of treatment is just by default. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and I mean, there are ways that I've coped with that, but that's also a thing that I'm like needing to cope with all the time.
Mhm.
That it's like an exception when I'm treated respectfully
Right. I was gonna say, like,
as a
that's
visibly
insanity.
trans person. Yeah, I mean, but it's like, and I hear that and I go like, yeah, like,
When that should
It
be like the
is.
bare minimum.
but
yeah.
then there's also this part in my head where it's like, yeah, but I mean, it's like so normal for me.
Yeah.
To just like be. To be fair, during my transition, I've been getting stared at a lot more because I'm pretty than because I'm trans, and like I'm both. But you know, cishet people don't find trans people pretty, so the vibe is like totally different.
Right.
Like the energy of it, like when I'm at the grocery store or whatever. And I've been feeling good about my transition, but like getting clocked, like obviously fucking sucks.
Yeah.
By some stranger, and then in my own neighborhood, right? Like if I'm walking
Right.
up to my own place, that feels legitimately endangering.
Yeah.
And that's legitimately endangering for any woman, but especially
Yeah.
a trans woman.
Right.
So I mean, dealing a lot with that. And then I mean, dog sitting has been good. It's been good to get a change of scenery, and I'm still like working while I'm there.
Mhm.
So I appreciate the change of scenery, and then cannabis in the evening, like most evenings, has kind of helped me like wind down from things, be it like everyday traumatic experiences of being
Yeah.
harassed or just like, the being in the same place, like working from home, like cabin fever is stressful, but then also changing scenery as like an autistic person is also super stressful. So it's been like a way for me to like give myself a break. And that's been really helpful. Yeah, so update from when I was last year. I have one partner now. And that
It's
is her,
me.
and that is the best. But it was messy, the other one.
Aw.
But I'm happier now, so it's all good.
Good.
And yeah, it's good to hang around with the dogs. They're just dirty and big and scary. But they're cute.
It
Yeah.
did make her appreciate Kirby even more, though.
Yeah,
Our little
Kirby
cat.
to
I'm
kitty cat.
really a cat person now. I'm just like too anxious to be a dog person now.
Right.
And
Well, and Kirby is like the
The
funniest
best.
cat.
Yeah.
Just
Kirby
so...
has such a personality. He's amazing.
He's hilarious.
And he's her little trans mask cat. He was mislabeled on his birth certificate as a girl, and likes Saint Butt Reverse. So him and I are kindred spirits. And it was really cool. So like when we met him, they were surprised, like the people that were handling the adoptions, that he was like so active, because he was like a really quiet cat. And then we walked in, and then he was like standing up and reaching. It was like he chose us as much
They
as we
always
chose him.
do.
Yeah.
Always.
Because like these people that were, because it was like an adoption thing that was happening at PetSmart,
Oh yeah.
and the people who were there like facilitating the adoption were like his current foster family.
Yeah.
So they were like, he doesn't do this, and like
Aw.
we walked in and he was like clawing at the cage and trying to, and he like immediately wanted to be held,
And he was purring in my arm.
Mm.
Oh
and
my
we were like,
God.
this is the one.
This
is
That's
him.
exactly how I wound up with Jaeger. We went in for like dog toys, and then
Mhm.
I saw this cat, and I was like, "Oh my god, the
Oh.
cat!" And then he was like, "I'm your cat now," and I was like,
Yeah.
"We have a cat now."
there's like a magnetism with it.
Oh, totally.
Uh,
well, and Shio too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a really depressed cat, is what they called her.
Mhm.
Like she doesn't do anything. She just lays low. We walk in, and I walked past her, and she stood up and yelled at me. I was like, okay, and I started petting her, and they're like, wow. And then I left, and she started yelling at me again.
And like
Yeah.
reaching
Oh.
through
She was, like,
and putting their noses in there. Yeah.
Yeah, she was mad that I was petting another cat.
It sounds cliche, but it is true. Like,
They know. They're like,
Yeah.
that's the one. I'm going home with you.
Mhm.
and it's great. So, yeah, I got to see him today, which was good.
Good.
And yeah, today is my last day. Tomorrow's gonna be my day off, so we're probably gonna head up a museum.
Oh, fun.
Heck yeah. That's been me. It's been cool. It's been fine.
Laying low.
Yeah,
Mm.
figuring things out.
Sweet.
You know, all the buzzword phrases that I'm gonna keep saying unless somebody else.
Just keep going.
Well, I think we can introduce
Synergy.
our topic.
Paradigm
Synergy.
shift.
That's what we were doing yesterday.
Yeah. So our topic is called "Get It
Bad.
Done,"
Get it
and
done.
feeling good about things, and you know, the weather's been pretty
Everything
alright.
is going well.
The importance of small
No.
talk when living with disabilities.
I'm living
Nobody
the
talks
dream,
about it,
actually. So
but small talk cured my
Everything
OCD.
is
It's amazing.
wonderful. Self-care cured my fatigue. I'm going to be
Doc-
mad about that for a while. Because literally every time I talk to this woman, I question myself. And I
Yeah.
have to like go back and figure out what is actually real
Yeah, you've
through
never-
other people.
You've not had a
It's
good
so
interaction
irritating.
with her.
No, it's because she does not understand. And
No.
she's not willing to admit that she doesn't understand.
No, she made up her mind like
Yeah.
when you
Well,
before
she
you even
she
went in,
keeps
just
like
off the chart.
trying different labels on, and I'm like, no, none of this fits. None of
Yeah.
it. None of it fits. It's just frustrating, and this is why, like, I don't know what it is. I get along with male doctors on a much better level. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I think I'm too flippant, and then women just find me off-putting. I don't know.
You were trying to figure this out yesterday.
Right.
But,
I'm like, I don't know what the problem is, but like,
I think you're too cool.
I don't know what it is.
They're
It's
jealous.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
clearly.
I think the fairer sex, as it were, the femoids.
You're one of them.
I am. Yay! No, I knew that, but
I knew
it's good to. I'm a femoid. I'm M to F, male to femoid.
Male to female. Nice. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. But
It's
I think
feminism.
everybody's like that, where you have like, I get along with women better. I get along with men better as far as like doctors go.
Yeah.
Way get along with women better.
Yeah, like
I
I,
don't,
know
like-
a lot of people who are like, I need to, like Randy even. He
Mhm.
needs to work with
Yeah.
a female therapist.
I need a type of person.
I think the only dude I hang out with outside of this room is my dad.
And we love
And
him.
Kirby.
Oh,
Kirby's a dude. Kirby's macho as fuck.
we did come to like some kind of conclusion, and it was like men are easier to read. So
Yeah.
if they've already
Oh,
made
yeah,
up their
yeah.
mind, you
Mhm.
can
You know.
peg it right away, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't need
That's
to deal
what
with
it
you
was, yeah.
anymore. But with her, I was like, okay, give it one more. Okay, give it one more.
Yeah.
Okay, give it one more. Give it one more. Give it
Mhm.
one more. And now I'm just like, I am not having a good time,
That makes sense.
and you're frustrating the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Men are easy socially, but, and I think this is reasonable, they scare the shit out of me.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely
don't hang
fair.
out with
There's
them.
a good reason for that.
Yeah, so I hang
It's
out with
a rational fear.
I can also talk about my HRT process, which
Oh,
is so 400 milligrams of Spiro nalactone dries me the fuck out.
Oh.
So I've been having to hydrate like a lot. Like when I feel like I'm hydrating too much is when I'm hydrating the regular amount.
Oh yeah.
And like all of the rules that I built up, like living before HRT, are just like totally out the window because my body is like changed,
Mm.
and my like standards and needs for things are totally different. So it's like I'm learning it all over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been getting dizzy a lot. But yeah, keeping up on water is good, and then yeah, cannabis also helps with that. It dulls the senses, and then this helps with headaches. And then so I was supposed to go to like I think around today. I think it was like Thursday of last week. I was supposed to go, and I had like labs done. But only one of the 4 labs that I needed were actually done by that
Ugh.
point. So I was like, I know this isn't like I'm not going to get all 3 labs back. They
Right.
ship it over to Utah, I think.
Oh wow.
Which is pretty funny. They're doing my gender surgery and stuff in Utah, which is pretty funny. They must be so pissed. Sorry, if you're from Utah, sorry, but
You know what
Sorry.
it's like.
We just know. Sorry. It's just sorry.
I mean, my prejudice, I think, is reasoned out, so don't worry about it, besties. Yeah, so I had to reschedule, so I have it coming up, I think a week after yours,
Yes.
mid-September. And I was wanting to get onto progesterone, which is basically estradiol plus.
Mhm.
And I also get to call it prog, which is one of my favorite music genres, so that's kind of cool. Because I'm a lame. And I was also thinking of doing injections, which is cool because I wanted to practice for heroin. So
Yeah. Those are in your
Um,
hip though, usually, right? Like.
yeah. So those are heroin at the hip. That's like a death metal.
Heroin at the
album.
hip.
I like it. Yeah. So
Holstered heroin at the hip.
oh hell yeah, Triple H. Yeah. So those are hopefully more like concentrated, and I'm at a good point in my HRT, but I want to keep
Yeah.
continuing it,
Mhm.
just because it's and I like taking more control of it. I think that changing it and not getting settled on one thing makes me feel less like pharmaceutically indebted
Right.
Mm.
and
Mhm.
entrapped, basically, if I like keep changing things up.
Yeah.
And that's also better for the body because I'm getting it in different ways. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. When a trans girl pegs me too, I get it that way. Sorry. God, I really. Am I too much?
No.
Am I the problem?
So, do
I'm
we
kinda
want to
transphobic.
talk about what our
Oh, yeah.
topic is?
Well, and I think this is super relevant for everybody. Summer brought this up, and we were all like, yeah, this is perfect. So we're going to talk about having to exist in a world that's not made for us and how we go about doing that when people are unable to or unwilling to understand our experiences.
Fine line.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are It's a mixture of both. I
Yeah.
want to talk about that too.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about the unable, where it's like they don't have the depth of knowledge to be able to understand a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there's also this like weird denial of other people's
Mhm.
experiences.
Right. Well, it makes them uncomfortable. Right?
Exactly. So for their own comfort,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. Or, oh, well, it's obviously not what you're saying it is.
And
or,
maybe this
Or
is
assuming
me.
there's a system in place already.
Mhm.
Right.
Maybe this is me getting hung up on semantics, but it's like we are the disabled ones. They are able.
Yeah.
Right? Like definitively.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's just semantics or me or like whatever, but it's like I hear that and I accept it. It's easier to accept than people being unwilling because that feels malicious.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's also like
There is like a subconscious element.
it
though.
takes like so much from people with disabilities.
Mhm.
I don't have any physical disabilities, but like all, mental stuff. And there's such like a
Yeah.
like it takes a lot of effort to even get abled people to understand what it is. And it's
Mhm.
like, this is your job. You were born with the right body and you built the world around us. Why do I have to do this for you?
Right.
And I resent that. a
I
little bit.
think for me, it's a lot of like, suddenly I have to be the poster child for all of these
Yes.
these
Oh, yeah.
things.
I'm like
And,
the one trans person that everybody in my life who isn't trans knows, basically.
Yes,
Mm.
and like,
And then you
it's-
become the educator.
Uh-huh.
Yes, because there's an element of like, and I feel like this is anything that can be othered.
Mhm.
When you are in that group of being othered, you suddenly have to be the educator for it. And if you
Mhm.
don't want to, or you feel like you don't have to,
Then you're
Yeah.
being abrasive.
then you're being abrasive, or you're not willing to help people to understand.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm using less than 1% of my effort to meet you in the middle. So why don't you use 80% of yours
Yes.
to meet me there, or
Right.
it's your fault.
Well, and they don't consider that, like, they're not the only person we've had to have these conversations
Uh-huh.
with.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
usually not even in the same day.
Yes.
No, we're just characters that
So-
appear in their
Uh-huh.
lives that have
Right.
that
The-
quirk.
We
The
stop existing when
right.
they're not looking at us.
The first time that I like had a conversation with my downstairs neighbor, besides her touching my hair, which is a big no-no, I had to talk about my penis.
Oh my god.
And that is not abnormal. Like, that is like a really normal thing to do. And it's
Oh,
like,
jeez.
that's another thing of like my standards being so low, but it's like, it's not even societal shit because they know.
Right.
And that's why they're posing these uncomfortable body questions,
Mm.
because they have this idea of transnormativity in their mind of like, oh, so you want to get the surgery. And it's like, oh, do you still have like your, how'd she put it? Do you still
Take
have
your
your
parts.
original parts? It's like, I'm comfortable with the way that my body is right now, but I'm not going to talk to my octogenarian stranger neighbor
yeah.
about my dick while your kids are here.
Could you imagine if that was just normal though?
It is.
Well, I mean, for everyone,
Kinda.
like just
Yeah.
dude, you just walk up, how's your dick?
I would
there.
love that. I mean, to be fair, cis men
Normalize
talk
it.
about
How's
their
your
dick all
vag
the fucking
hanging
time.
today? Oh, Lord.
Hey, is your taint good? Lotion her up, please.
Mine's hurting a little bit today.
Yeah.
Stop, please, God.
But I
Oh, it's
mean,
itchy, so you haven't had the surgery. Sorry.
I mean, I
For
feel like
nothing.
I've gotten it in a couple different ways, because like, even trying to like talk to my mom about like being autistic,
Yeah.
and the response being, well, but I think everybody in the family is, and I'm
Or
like,
Oh,
everyone's a
God.
little autistic.
and I'm like, cool, that doesn't help me
Uh-huh.
with the fact that all of these things that like I remember from my childhood, and like not being able to relate to people my age, and not
Mhm.
being able to do certain things, and feeling really uncomfortable, like
Mm-hmm.
all of these things that are like the tick markers for autism were
Uh-huh.
either not caught or
Mhm.
ignored.
Yes.
And which is worse?
Exactly.
Well, and then you play it off later because you're like, oh, well, if everyone's a little autistic and they're doing
It's like-
fine, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm. Then
Yeah.
you're making it your problem.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and then playing off the reasons for the struggle,
Right.
Right.
which
We're-
is ridiculous.
Because part of it is being in a minority group. Like, it wouldn't be difficult if everybody was this, because the world would be built for it. Right? Like, if everybody was left-handed, then right-handed people would have the problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the model that we have.
Mhm.
And it's like, we can go about changing it, but it's so fucking... Remember when Mom came over and I was talking about self-diagnosing with autism, and she talked over me and didn't acknowledge it ever.
Oh.
And it's like, that was your job, girl.
Yeah.
Girl
Yeah.
being my mother. Sorry. That was your fucking job.
Right.
And it's like, I remember as a kid, like, telling her, like, hey, I think I'm autistic. And there's just like, no, it's just that, like,
You're just
any
smart.
of these different things.
Mhm.
And it's like, I mean, maybe it was that I was just trans, but the mode of it being dismissal and not actually like, let's diagnose the problem. If I like,
Right.
if you don't believe it's autism, what is it? Like, if you don't believe it's this,
Does
like-
she like take it personally?
yeah.
That is something that I've noticed with that generation.
Yes.
Is like
Uh-huh.
anything that you bring to the table, like I have a mental illness, or you missed this when I was a kid, or you fucked up in some way or another, or even like I've noticed like autism in like grandchildren.
Mhm.
They will about where they're like it's a dirty word because it reflects badly on
It's like,
them
no,
in
it's
some
not.
way.
Like, I dig being autistic, but it's the way that people
well, but they
acknowledge
take
it,
it
like, treat it that's
personally.
shitty.
Yeah.
They dismiss the personhood of the experience
Mhm.
and then take it personally as like a blame.
Yes. And I think that's like I think that's the bulk of what ended up happening with trying to explain to my mom.
Mhm.
Just like this weird, like it was a personal failing on
Mhm.
her behalf that I
Like, well, what do you want me to do about it? I
Yes.
did my best.
It's like, if
And-
you believe that,
Yeah.
deal with that.
and then it was also like, oh well, we noticed these things, but you were successful, so we
I
didn't
hate
think. And it's like, you were like, I feel like it goes back to like other people's definition of success cannot be what our definition of success is.
Right.
Mhm.
Because my idea of having a successful day is like, I don't throw up, I don't have some kind of panic attack or meltdown, my joints aren't killing me the whole entire day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my idea
Yeah.
of success is not the same.
No, not at all.
And it has to be that way because when I was trying to live to other people's like idea of success, I was burning myself out every day, all the time, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
But it just turns into like having to justify that though.
Yeah.
Or having to justify like, or feeling like I have to justify it to people, even people who understand.
Or having to explain things again and again. Do you remember when I went down and then afterwards it wasn't like, hey, are you okay? Like, is there something I could do? It was like, how can we make sure that that doesn't happen again?
Yes.
And you're like, I don't know, change my genetics?
Yeah,
What do
you
you
tell
want from
me.
me?
Yeah.
Stop being disabled at work, please.
Yes, because anytime something
It's
happens
inconvenient.
with one of us, the other one is usually like
On
first
top
on
of
the
it.
scene because
Mhm.
it's just like,
Because we get it.
because I get it and I know, and I'm like, there were even the one time that you went down later, people were like, how did you know what to do? And I was like, because I've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Uh-huh.
I know what I know what the check boxes are of like, oh, this is not just a daily thing, this is, we are having some kind of flare.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a lot of times I can also feel that it's a bad day because
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
my body also
Oh, yeah.
responds that way.
Like, we'll check on each other if it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I just felt the pressure change. How are you doing?
Yeah, like I'll get texts from Karina that are like, hey, are you feeling this the way that I'm feeling this? And I'm like, yeah.
Mhm.
And it's helpful to have that, but at the same time, even with people, like I feel like I'm constantly trying to justify myself to you or trying to justify myself to you
Mhm.
because I feel like I have to, because I
Right.
spent my entire childhood having to like explain to people why I needed certain things when other
Mhm.
people didn't need that,
Right.
or why I couldn't handle certain things, or like had to step away from like
Mm-hmm.
loud stuff or like family dinners or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just a constant battle of me
Yeah.
having to explain stuff. So now even though I don't to the people that I, that know and understand, there's
Mhm.
like an almost pathological
Mhm.
element to it where it's just like, for my own safety, I need to over explain the fact
Yes.
that
But
Mhm.
then when you over explain, do you feel like you're lying or that they're interpreting
Yes.
it as you
Yes.
lying?
Mhm.
yes,
I feel that way too. And I
I-
was gonna ask,
Ah.
do you think that it's, in the case of like me or Karina, just asking the nearest person in the room as like a replacement, like asking a comfortable person, or is it like also like in your head it gets twisted and it's like suddenly, these people are like you're afraid that they are going to lash out in the way that most other people do.
It's both, because it's like I need to check myself and make sure that I'm not faking it by explaining it to somebody else.
But then explaining it plants the
Yes.
seed, and it's like,
That
I made it up.
Oh, I
Yes.
do that all the
Yeah.
time.
That's for me. That's an OCD
Right?
thing for me.
And I'm constantly in this thing where I'm trying to remind myself that like this shit's happening when nobody is looking at me, so I'm not faking it. But then my brain goes, what if you're faking it to yourself though,
Uh-huh.
so that
Yeah.
you can justify not do like, especially on days when I like have all of these grand plans to get stuff done and it's
Yeah.
a bad day for my body or a bad
Mhm.
day for my brain. And then I turn into this thing where it's like, what if you're not actually feeling bad? You just are lazy and don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So you're just making the excuse
Yeah.
that
Well,
you don't feel good.
Okay, so let's chat about that for a second.
Laziness
because
doesn't
that's
exist.
a huge thing where it's like we call ourselves lazy because we
Uh-huh.
are measuring our worth by our productivity,
Yes.
and that is deeply ingrained in all of us and absolutely awful and wrong.
Mhm.
And I will say it now because I'm going to keep saying it forever. You are and always will be worth more than what you can produce or do for others.
Yeah.
End of story. You have worth because you are.
Now just believe that sentence.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's why I'm like, I'll just say it forever so
Yeah.
that you hear it
It's,
forever.
I mean, it's hard to believe because our whole mode of being in economic exchange and shit is
Based on
absolutely
productivity.
antithetical to
Yeah.
like taking care of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
But
I mean,
then when it comes to like work,
mhm.
we're in the same boat where we're like, I can't explain enough and I can't under explain enough to make it make sense to people.
Mhm.
And I don't know what they think or what they are expecting because I'm literally always on fire. And so
Yeah.
I feel like people look at me and they just go, "Ugh, again?" Or like, "Ugh, it's always something.
Inconveniences them.
Right?
Yes,
It's always something.
I heard why is it always something so much growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
That now like it's always like something's always happening. It's always something. Like
Yeah.
my hackles immediately go up
Yeah.
because I'm like, I can't. That's not my fault though.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
Right.
and I feel like there's this weird push and pull, and I feel like we've talked about this briefly, like the last time I was on, but like there's this weird thing of like knowing that what if my over explaining is interpreted as me lying and
Yes.
trying to cover up the fact that I'm
Mhm.
lying,
Always.
and then
Mhm.
and then if it gets turned into, well, but are you lying? And then I'm like, no, I don't.
Panic mode.
I don't think I'm lying, but what if I don't know that I'm lying?
Exactly.
What if I am pathologically
Right.
manipulating people into believing that I deserve
Yeah.
something?
It's incredible how
It's so many hoops. Like
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
my brain is constantly jumping through hoops, and then I get to 2 p.m. and wonder why I'm exhausted.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing that works for me, this is a way to relate, not a way to like prescribe if it's going to work for you, but I always think to myself then, okay, if it is pathological, that's still a problem.
Mhm.
That's still a thing that's not my fault. That's still a thing that I'm not choosing to do.
Yeah.
That is a thing that I'm compelled to do based on so many different mixtures of life circumstances and trauma and genetics and all this shit,
Mhm.
the same as it would be with a disability.
Right. Right.
So
Oh my gosh,
even
have you
if it is
seen-
pathological lying,
Yeah.
that sucks. Like that sucks.
Have you seen on? I think it was on TikTok. I saw this video of a guy who was talking about how like mental illness, the way it's worded, is in and of itself like dismissive, in a way. And he was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what we should be saying is mental injury
Mhm.
because it's an injury to you and it takes time to heal and
Right.
recover from.
Yeah, it's not
And
an
so,
illness
like-
that you sleep 3 days through.
Exactly. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
Yeah, I think
mental disability prescribes like, oh, then you're unable to be productive, you're unable to function in
Yeah.
education. I've always wanted to use that because mine is chronic. Like, I don't imagine it not being the case anytime soon. And I'm content with just taking my sertraline for the rest of my life. That's what
Mhm.
works for me, and my quality
Right.
of life is way better.
Yeah.
But it's like, illness, no. Injury, maybe, but it's like, I broke my arm fucking hard. It shattered into fucking splinters, and I'm still at the scene of the crime
Mhm.
right.
and picking shit up.
right.
And I'm gonna be there for 20 more years.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well,
because
and
I smoke too much chronic. That I have a chronic illness.
it's like this constant process of healing and re-injury and picking at the scabs, and it's frustrating because we're living in a world that's not designed to accommodate us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want accommodation, we have to go through crazy processes to prove that we need accommodation.
And there's so much shame attached to having to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inherently part of it.
Yeah.
Like, there is a shame element that is inherently part of needing to ask for help as a quote-unquote functional adult.
Yeah.
That it's just like, it makes you not want to even try to ask, because, like, I'm sure there are reasonable accommodations I should be getting based on diagnoses that I have, but the thought of bringing that to the table is horrifying.
And
right.
having to be juried.
Yeah.
It having to be
Yeah.
it having to be like accepted,
Uh-huh.
and it having to be like,
Well, and it has to be written out by your doctor, and then is your doctor going to believe that you need that?
Or the next doctor after that
Exactly.
that you have to see. And...
Like, even getting my my handicap plaques, I was like, I had to look at my doctor, and I was like, I feel like a fraud, but my husband keeps telling me that I need these. And he, luckily, like, I have a really good doctor at Kaiser, and he's wonderful, and I love him. And he was like, oh, yeah, no, absolutely, you do need that. But you never know. You never know if you're like, hey, I need a thing, and they're going to be like, maybe you should just, like, eat better. Maybe you should sleep. Like, you need a better sleep routine.
and I mean, I've been thinking a lot about the fact that, like, that was, I think that's ingrained in all of us, but I'm, like, remembering how heavily ingrained that was in me as a teenager. Like, I remember being in high school, and I was in choir, and I was at a choir concert thing, and I was starting to shake beforehand.
Yeah.
And the vice principal was there, and we've talked about my high school vice principal a lot. He was
I assassinated him.
the worst. But he literally was like, you can't go up there then. Like, you're going to embarrass yourself. And then had a random woman sit with me because it was an adult. And I was like, first of all, my mother is in that room. If you really wanted an adult to sit with me, you could get my mother.
It's a shame factor. Yeah.
It's a shame thing.
We're going to shame you because we think you're lying, or we've decided you're lying.
It's become an inconvenient thing. This is the same guy who, after I fundraised to go to Disney World with marching band, literally, like, 4 days before we left, told me, like, had me come to the, like, office with the social worker.
Yeah.
And was like, we don't want you to go. You're too much of a liability if you go on this trip. And that's the time that my mom decided to raise hell, which was great. And I went to Disney, and it was fine. But, like, that wasn't the point. The point
that's
of it,
an ADA problem right there.
The point of it was that I was told, you are too much for people to handle, and we don't want you to go because you are going to embarrass us.
Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And I was like a 16-year-old kid. Like, it's one of those things where I can't imagine the thought process that even got somebody there.
Here's the thing, is that the thought process, I feel like the unconscious thought process is that people decide we're lying because A, they don't have the depth of knowledge to understand, and B, if that were true, they would have to reconsider their depth of knowledge, which is scary, and people don't like to do that. So they don't like to reconsider what could be true or not true.
And also the idea
and then
of,
they're like, I'll just shame you into maybe telling us that you lied.
And also I think the third piece of that is if people accept the fact that, like, our day-to-day lives are so hard and we are still being quote unquote successful, then they have to re-examine like
their bootstraps definition of
Right.
self-worth.
I'm
Exactly.
so tired of the bootstraps argument, though. Like, I wish, I don't know. I just wish that somebody could, in some way, really actually understand without actually having to experience what we go through. Because, and this is like when I was giving the recap, if anyone else went on leave like that, it'd be a big deal. And people would be checking in and freaking out and, like, whatever. And I'm not saying, like, I need attention. I'm saying that they have decided that because it's me and because I'm always a dumpster fire, that, oh, she's on leave, but it's fine. Like,
yes,
this is just par for the course for Karina. It's fine.
It's
This
not
is
exceptional,
normal
and
now.
therefore it must be easier.
Right.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah.
It's not different than what's usually going on. Therefore, it can't be that serious.
Right.
It can't be that bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
And you're
again,
just being dramatic.
if people who don't have to deal with that had to conceptualize that, then it turns into them having to kind of reflect inward and be like, well, if she's in that much pain all the time and she's still able to be successful, what am I doing? But that's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So
Right.
people don't want to have to do that. And
Yeah.
like, I get the idea of not wanting to do things that are uncomfortable, but also I'm forced every day to do things that are uncomfortable, and the things that are uncomfortable for me are like getting up out of bed
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
like trying to be a person who like does things.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and that's like the meltdown I had. Life is too long, and I am so tired. I have worked so fucking hard to do what I do every single day, but it's still hard every single day. It doesn't get not hard just because I'm doing it. It is still hard.
Tell me if you vibe with this language, because I've been thinking about it for myself. It doesn't get easier, you get used to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get used to it, but it's
It
it's
doesn't
still
get easier.
friggin'
If anything,
hard.
it gets harder because
Right.
your standards change.
Well,
and
and
your
stamina runs
personalization
out.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stamina is a big thing, and like I'm literally living break to break, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how I survive. I live break to break, and then barely make it to May, and then I didn't have a summer. Well,
You have the summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
yes.
But like, even, I don't know. I just feel like I spent my entire like childhood and teenage years having to explain all the time
Mhm.
that I'm tired of doing it at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well, and
tired
it's-
of being made to feel like the only way that my shit is valid is if people
Validate it. For you.
validate it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like what I was talking about with like Jen. Jen is always so sweet with me at work. Because she's like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I feel like absolute shit. Like I'm not having a good time. I always feel awful." And there was that one time, were you around when I snapped at Nate?
No.
I think I was like going home or something. I was having a really bad time, and he was like, "How are you?" And he asked how I felt, and I just went, "How do I ever feel, Nate? Like, how do I ever feel? This is a stupid question, and I'm tired of answering it.
Mhm.
Just assume that I feel awful." But I don't remember where I was going with that. But people at work being like, "Oh, well, if you feel that bad, you should go home." And then you're like, "But if I went home every time I felt like that,
I
I'd
would
never be
Be
here."
home
Yeah.
all the time.
And
Yeah.
then that leads us to the problem of like, what is hard enough that I can go home or take space?
What is
What
actually
is-
being sick enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
What
What
is-
is sick enough when everything is sick enough for everyone
Mhm.
else? Like if someone else felt the way we felt, they would absolutely not be at work.
Yeah.
Well, and then having to like deal with like, making everyone else believe it too.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, that's
you feel like
labor.
you
Yeah.
need to justify to everyone else
Right.
what you don't believe.
Yes, exactly.
That's
where
the
you
fun.
already feel like an imposter.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like it makes sense. Like if you're, living a day to day where you look at other people and go, okay, so if they get sick, they go to my baseline and then they go home.
Hmm.
I'm at that baseline all the
Yes.
time. I'm working and I dip below it, and then I go. Like, no wonder it feels like a fraud because it feels situational.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
to me, it feels like, oh, isn't that convenient?
yeah.
Like the one
Yeah.
day that I don't feel well, I don't feel well.
Yeah.
Isn't that convenient, Lulu?
Yeah.
Like the one day that you don't feel good, you don't feel good?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that makes any fucking sense.
No, it
No,
does.
I
It
get
does.
what you're saying.
Okay, cool.
When you know, you know.
Yeah, I suppose. And if you don't,
Sorry.
sorry.
But yeah, no, it's absolutely like, and it's situational where you're like, do I have the stamina to deal with this?
Mhm.
But then when you call out and you're like, I'm calling out for every reason that I've always had every other day.
Right. Like that day, the first day you took off.
Yeah.
When I was like,
Uh-huh.
you can't go to work today.
Mhm.
And you're like,
Oh
well,
yeah, did you hear
now I
how
have to
that?
write my entire life story out to explain.
That was the day you got sick.
Yes.
No, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the Tuesday, and so
Yes, that was the day that I didn't go in
Yeah.
either because I was shaking for 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, and I woke up and I was like immediately overstimulated and I was like on the verge of tears, and we had a psychic moment and he messaged me and was like, "Sleep is for the weak."
I don't normally message you until like afternoon.
No,
But it was
yeah.
like 6 a.m. and I was like, okay.
like literally right after I woke up.
Mhm.
And then I messaged back and was like, well, I want to be the week. And we got on a FaceTime call and he convinced me not to go to work because I was like, I am so done with absolutely everything.
Mhm.
And I am just, I'm not good. I'm not good. I feel frayed at the ends.
I think my thing that I've been doing a lot lately is that I've gotten very stubborn about
Mhm.
it, though, because Lou will tell me, like, on Wednesday, Lou was like, you don't have to go in. And I was like, no, I'm going to go in. And then I threw up in the car.
I've straight up been telling you you're being stubborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but we do it because otherwise, like,
It feels like
what's
if
the
I'm
alternative?
it feels like I'm not trying.
Right.
If I'm not being stubborn about it, it feels like I'm not giving it enough.
Well,
of
and
an
then we
effort.
go back to that productivity is worth.
But
Yes.
but here's the thing. Trying doesn't equal like trying. It equals burning yourself the fuck out
Mhm.
and losing the opportunity to try anything else. That's the definition of trying, at least for me, when I
That was basically our
Fucking
conversation.
rational humans.
Was like-
Damn it.
You
Right.
can't do this anymore.
So
Yeah.
can I connect this to, because I don't think I have EDS or PONS or anything like that, but I relate to it hardcore. I want to talk about it from like a queer
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
like a visibly. Okay. So here's one anecdote. I was working as a para, and I was earlier in my transition, so just as hot, but maybe not as pretty as I am now. And just like in a different way, you know. So you know, like visibly trans. Also, I'm 6'2", so it's like that is an anomaly for cis women. So it's going to be an
She
anomaly
tall.
for me. Right. So it's like I'm getting introduced to the kiddos, and the person who's like been the pair the longest, kind of I guess my mentor at the time. You know, when somebody reacts to it, she kneels down and she goes, this is a person that identifies as a girl. And I had to, like, I was like, okay, I guess I'm grateful. But then I was like, okay, so I had to talk with her in between periods. And I was like, do you identify as a girl?
Right.
And she was
introduce
like,
yourself that
no,
way?
I am one. And I was like, okay, me too, though.
Mhm.
Like, I am one. Like, I'm not, when you say identify, you mean delusioned into believing.
Yeah, that's icky.
And it's like I had to be grateful because like that's well intentioned, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm not getting slurred at, I'm not getting actively misgendered, and I am
Right.
getting stuck up for. But it's like again, like my low standard of treatment.
Yeah.
It's like
It's like
I had to-
malicious compliance.
Yes, I had to do something
Yeah.
similar when somebody said
But they
preferred,
think it's right.
preferred
It's the wrong
pronouns for a
thing.
student, and I was
and
like,
it's like
they're
they're
not
not preferred.
pronouns.
No,
though,
they
just
are
what
pronouns.
the pronouns are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That's there's
Yeah. Like if I were to ask like my dad, like, hey, what are your preferred pronouns? He'd go like, I don't have any. And it's like, yeah, because your pronouns are just he, him. Like that's what they are.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever thought otherwise. They're just my pronouns, and everybody gets them wrong.
Right.
And I've felt a lot more confident with that because now I can walk past a car, like see my reflection in passing, and I can go like, oh, that's a woman, and then I connect it to me being me, and it's like that's fucking awesome. But it's like even before then, it's like I have to play like the whole respectability thing, where it's like if I snap at being like, fucking imagine if I just like for the whole day called you Aiden, and you were like, why the fuck are they calling me Aiden? That's how it fucking feels.
Yeah.
Except imagine then that your name Aiden was like a fucking witness protection identity that you had to completely erase from your mind, and it's connected to years and years of mistreatment and depersonalization and difficulty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do they fucking know I'm Aiden? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not Aiden, but how do they know that? And then it like makes you, I don't know. It's so
It's
fucking
like a
abstract and hard.
disqualifier.
But yeah, it's like,
yeah.
so that's been an example, and this conversation is reminding me also of like, so a world that's not built for us, right?
Yeah.
And I do vibe with the disability angle because I like vibe with everything that like everybody's saying about
Well,
shit
okay,
when it comes
but
to like my OCD and stuff.
I think neurodivergence is absolutely in
Right.
that category of
Right.
like a
Oh,
world that's not built for us.
Oh, totally.
It's
Right.
built for type A and only type A.
Mm-hmm. And it's like neurodivergence doesn't necessarily have to have an intersection with mental illness. Mine certainly fucking does though, because I'm realizing that so many things that I do that I just thought were like background noise are like compulsions, and that takes fucking energy and effort.
Yeah.
So I relate to it in the sense of, you know, beyond my disability, I relate to it in a different sense too of like, y'all built the closet around me.
Yeah.
and watched me
yeah.
twirl in it and watched me figure out like where the windows are, what the escape plan is. And then when I come out of it, it's either we've been new or it's none of our business.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I mean, I agree, but we're not living in the utopia that you think that we're living in.
Yeah.
And it's like that response
That.
is like indicative of that, because God, it's like it is a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is a big deal.
It's like when we were talking about like the disqualifiers that people who have lived like happy sheltered lives have,
Yes.
where they're like, oh, you had a really rough experience. Well, are you sure it was that rough? Are you sure people were like doing it on purpose? Are you sure that it was abusive? Like, they have to like disqualify our experience because it
Mhm.
makes them question their own personal like privileges. I
Right.
guess.
So that's
Yeah.
that's why
Does
it's
that make
like
sense?
it's like, oh, it's 2022. It's not a big deal that you're gay or whatever, or trans or whatever. And it's like, but it
Mm.
fucking is.
Yeah.
It's a huge fucking deal. Like,
Just because I am not actively being given a lobotomy does
Uh-huh.
not mean it is easy for me to exist
Right.
in the world.
right.
Like, even something
Right.
is
If I'm
like,
not in crisis.
even, and this is like a thing that I've dealt with already, but like I feel like it's important to bring it up. Like, when I had somebody come in and sub for me, and she organized my desk for me.
Ew, I don't like that.
And she ended up
no.
talking to me about it later because she came in and subbed for another day, and she was like, I just needed to like create a space for myself. I hope you were able to find your stuff. And I was like, yeah, whatever,
No.
it's fine. But like, that, I felt so embarrassed about it because there's an inherent like shame thing
yeah.
of like,
Your
I
desk was messy,
I
so
had to clean up your mess for you. And
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I know that it looks like a tornado exploded
you're
on
not
my desk.
adulting well enough.
But the thing about the tornado on my desk
You
is
know
that,
where everything
is
is.
that I know where
Exactly.
everything is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I can find all of my shit.
Don't move my piles.
Like,
They're
I
there
have,
for a reason.
I have piles of things. I have pens in certain places because I use certain pens for certain things because I have autism and I need access to the things that I need access to, and I need
Yep.
to be able to see all of it.
And it needs to be predictable, and it needs to be
like,
the way it needs to
I
be.
And I think if it came from a place of like, you know, if she also had autism, or you know, for me it's like an OCD thing. Sometimes things need to be cleanly in the
Mhm.
right way as well as messy in the right way. It's like a fucking thing. But it's like, if I were to do that, if it was coming from that place, I would have put it all back.
Right. Like
Right.
you
That's
make
the thing.
piles and you move it over.
But then
so
it's
that
like
can
you
work,
treat
and
it
then
as
you
a
put it back.
favor, and that's how you
Yeah.
know it comes from this holistic,
Yeah.
right?
This like
Able,
shameful
sheltered
place.
place,
Yeah.
where
It's
it's like,
I did
you
this for
needed
you.
my help
So you
to
can
get
keep
organized.
this.
and it's like a failing on my part.
Ugh.
Like, when I walked in and saw that my desk was rearranged, I like immediately was like, I don't like this. Not only
Nope.
because I can't find anything,
Well, because it's a violation.
because it also feels like
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's routine,
It's
bro.
violating.
it's, yes, and it's also like, now I feel like you had to see this thing that was not like cool mid-20s teacher of me, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
where
But it's like that's the default for us.
Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
most things are like that, and we don't have the power to change it
Mhm.
yes,
and do the world a favor by making it more accommodating
Right.
to us.
yes, because if I feel like if I made a place more like suited for me, everything would be in piles and nests and blankets
Exactly.
everywhere,
Mhm.
and then everybody would be like, what are you fucking doing?
Right.
Why are you doing
I mean, I
that?
think the
I
kids
am
would find it
doing
cozy,
an
to be fair.
autism.
Yeah.
You go away.
Doing a little bit of tism.
Shut
all.
your hate hole and get out of my room.
But like, I think there's just so much shame attached to this
Not being
othering,
type A, yeah.
Mhm.
and it's any kind of
It's
like whether
clearly
it's,
you're struggling and we need to help you because you're not functioning the way that like normal people should and do.
The way that NPCs
And you're like,
function.
Right.
even like we're doing this thing at school with the big kind of like above us
Among
project
Us?
that is in
Sorry.
charge of our school.
Ah, yes. Mm-hmm.
And part of that is like analyzing your health from like 6 different angles, and like looking at
Gross.
things like nutrition and whatever else.
No.
And when I
Thank you.
did this with my advisory students, I was like, this is great, but I need you to keep in mind that this does not take into, like, this scale thing does not take into account mental illness.
Mhm.
This does not take into account any kind of
Mhm.
disability.
Yeah.
Because, like, here's the thing.
Let's stop
For-
shaming people
Yeah.
because they're not meeting a
It's-
like
it's
made up
also-
standard.
It's also based off of Maslow's shit, which was only studied with white people.
I appreciate Maslow's just because I use it to explain that kids can't learn unless their needs are met.
Oh, for sure. It works as a model.
That's how I use that.
Right.
And I
but
will, like,
it's not one size fits all in every
No,
scenario. And that's
absolutely
what people
not.
think it is. Because it's like,
well, and I think
I
need
need to
to
feel good to
understand-
eat, not the other way around.
right. Well, and they need to understand that like safety plays a huge role in all of those things, all of them. And if you don't feel safe, you're putting your needs on hold.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even just like I can't get my needs met. You put your needs on hold and then you don't have needs. And then you're on survival mode and
Yeah.
you just stay that way.
I was gonna say, like, how do you function in the world as is?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, I don't.
We should
I
come
just
back to
avoid
that
the world.
after the break.
Yeah.
But I think we're at a
Yeah.
time for a break.
I think so
We're
too.
at a good-
I need to stretch my jaw.
Yes. Well, this has been fantastic so far. So
Yeah.
you need to
I was
chime
hoping
in
it wouldn't be a
more.
bummer.
No, I don't. I'm waiting
Yes, you
for.
do.
No, I'm saying everything I need to say.
I need you to tell me. Get down here.
Talking enough.
Okay, well then you can do the outro.
I don't do the outro.
So there.
I'm doing the intro. Don't worry.
What do
about
we
it.
need to do?
Work
Who
on the outro.
remembers?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to see if I remember.
Okay.
Take your meds. Water.
Yep.
Hydrate. Or dihydrate.
Mhm.
It's whichever you want.
Mhm.
I like that one.
Movement, if you're capable.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Be gay, do crime.
Sunlight.
Do crimes.
Go find some sunlight. And have a snack because you are a snack.
And you
Sounds
are
like
what
a
you
story.
eat.
There you go.
You don't want to be a fucking, I don't know,
Nothing.
dust
Nothing.
mode. Are you? I kind of want to be
Nothing.
nothing. Oh my god.
I just eat gummy bears.
Yeah.
It's true facts. All right, my loves. Take your break. Do what you need to do, and we will see you in a moment. Bye. Fantastic Pains now has merch. I know we've been promising it for a while, but it is here. You can find our stuff at fantastic-pains.creator-spring.com. We have t-shirts, hoodies, leggings, wine coolers, I guess you can call them, and my very favorite backpack. So take a minute, go check us out.
Oh, hey, you're back.
Welcome.
Perfect. Did you do the things? I hope you did.
Wonderful.
No, that's it. We're back.
I love
this
it.
whole
We-
time.
We did the things.
Yeah.
We went out and we had sunlight. And
Yeah.
we talked and we ranted and raved like lunatics and we had water and this is the wrong
We also
One?
saw a squirrel. We saw a squirrel and it was great.
we did see a
Yeah.
squirrel. There was in fact a squirrel. Squirrel. Where's the other one of these?
Right there.
No.
Karina
I
put
think
my
it's the
wrist
one I
back in
dropped,
place.
Dusty.
My wrist was popped.
Oh
and
yeah.
Karina
yeah.
Let me.
popped
I
it
got
for me.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
great.
I may have just diagnosed people again.
We had a bite and break.
I have a bad habit of diagnosing other zeros. This is whoa, buddy. Whoa. Oh no, it's that one.
Sorry.
Now it makes sense
Be a
again.
matched set.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're all neurodivergent over here, and
Not
we
that you
needed
could tell that
fidget.
Yeah, you'd never know.
from the everything about us.
Yes. So we all did the fidget thing. There
Yes,
you go.
quite.
Yes, quite
Right.
indeed. Yeah. So we had interesting conversations, and I may have diagnosed more zeros. Like
At least it's on
spread
the radar.
love and the
Yeah.
eds.
Something to
Mhm.
think about.
Yeah.
Something I'll be thinking about.
Relocated some wrists,
And you're back.
and we're back.
And my back.
My pussy and my crack.
Yeah.
Since nobody else cut in,
That's what I've heard.
That's
I
what
guess
we-
I have to show both.
Just crack them. Oh, that does not sound nice.
No. Shut
No.
up. God.
I think I need to leave.
That's what my neighbor asked me. Have you gotten the pussy crack surgery yet? Have you cracked your pussy open?
Ow.
This is awful. I don't like it
hi besties.
I need to leave. Oh,
This
Lord.
is definitely a TikTok.
Fabulous. Wonderful.
Cool. We can post it on the Facebook,
The Facebooks.
the TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the Facebooks? The books of faces?
No,
One of the
not recently.
stims that I do with
A
Sam
girl
all the
has no
time
face?
is whenever she's watching something, I'm like, oh, is that your friend? Did I meet him at like your birthday party? I don't know if that's only like an Ashkenazi mother experience, but like, oh, that's your friend, right? Like, oh, I think he was in your 3rd grade class. Was my 3rd grade class Mrs. SARS? That's an unfortunate.
Oh, that didn't age
Oh,
well.
Yeah.
no.
Sorry, Mrs. SARS. No, Mrs. Safford. Damn.
We're like, oh, okay.
So
It's not as awful.
this is
Anyway, we have real things to talk about.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
we're coming back for part 2.
totally just derailed everything.
We're
Hey,
gonna
what
talk.
was your 3rd grade teacher?
I'm sure there's some juicy trauma there. Let's get into
what
it.
was your 2nd grade teacher's name? It's funny.
Mrs. Grove?
Mrs. Grove. I just love noun names.
It's not funny. It's just what her name was.
It is to me.
A lot of people with like Chris's have that going on. Like a lot of like terrain features.
I mean, Chris Pine.
hill,
Oh.
waters, creek. I know a
Creek?
shit ton of
Oh.
Jen's name is unfortunate too because she's Jen Brooke Hill.
That's cool. That's like a Scottish place.
Mm-hmm.
That's how like places in Scotland are
Yeah.
named.
Fabulous.
That's sick.
All right, what are we talking about this time?
Oh, we were going to talk about how to adapt to the world that's not meant for us.
Yes. While I think we need to also talk about changes that are coming about in
Yeah.
these new generations and how things are there's a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
For those of us who are not that type A. So, it's a little
You're either type A or Gen Z.
little bit of a or in hiding. It's the rest of us.
Yeah.
Great. But yes, so we've talked about the world not being made for us and the difficulties that we all go through,
Mhm.
and those invisible experiences that other people either can't understand or they shy away from because it is uncomfortable. But how do we adapt to the world that's not made for us? How do we make it so that we can function?
Masking.
Mhm.
Masking or staying home. That's it.
Masking
That's
or
what I got.
staying home. Now, what
These-
do you mean, like masking? Let's go through it.
Like, describe masking in general.
Describe it.
A few things start to happen. My vision starts to flatten. My heart gets to tap in, and I think I'm going to die.
And now we've been demonetized. I'm just
Yep.
kidding.
Thank you for that, Karina.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Awesome.
But, like, pretending you're fine.
Yeah.
Putting on that front that everything's not what it is because you don't want to make people uncomfortable because that's just rude.
Right.
You have a condition and you need to keep it in check.
Keep it to yourself.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, it's gross.
Like it's a
Knock
dirty
it off.
word, right?
Yes.
Like I was talking about somebody's reaction to their grandchild having autism before, and it very much was like, don't bring it up. That's a dirty word. Like I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. Like this bizarre, because it is. It's like anything that's not normal is icky, and you need to keep it to yourself and or like cope
Yeah.
quietly.
Well, imagine like trying to suggest it to people too. Like, you might be autistic. Like, how dare you?
right.
Like, I don't
Right.
mean it in a bad way.
How dare you?
I mean,
Yeah.
you have like a different way of thinking.
Like if you think it's bad, you've been conned.
right.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
I legitimately think that at least in this era, 90% of it is anti-vax conspiracy. I think that's really the source of it
Mm-hmm.
because that's really what put autism as a dirty word.
Well, that and Autism Speaks.
Oh,
Yes.
for sure.
Autism Speaks.
Didn't that come out like as
Wrecked.
a product of?
I don't even know how it came about, but it was disgusting, and it's
Mhm.
still disgusting. It's
Yeah.
just disgusting
Yeah,
in
it's
sheep's
just
clothing.
disgusting.
Right.
As
Because Autism Speaks started the like lost
Cure.
child campaign.
mhm.
Where they were like, "Oh, autism has stolen your child from you. Autism steals your kids."
and we're gonna cure autism.
And now it's how do we prevent
Uh-huh.
autistic people from being born?
It's eugenics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it always comes down to that, right?
Mhm.
Like you're not going to cure autism. You're not going to rewire somebody's brain,
Yeah.
right? Like, and also, sorry, they don't
I
need
was gonna say, would you want
or
that though?
want
Right.
a cure.
I'm just into a lot of video games.
Right.
It's just so irritating because you see
Not
these
to
parents who are
diminish it,
like,
it's also really difficult.
and I get it, like raising an autistic child who may be nonverbal or maybe has some like behavioral outbursts can be difficult. But a lot of the time you see people talk about autism as this like trial that parents face
Oh yeah.
instead of
Yes.
something that
Yes.
is affecting that child.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, it comes back to like, well, how did I fail as a parent that this is the kind of child I got? And it's
Right.
like,
Or
Genetics.
poor me,
yes.
my kid didn't come out the way I wanted it to.
Right.
Like-
It's like when I talked to my mother about my experience coming out, what she centered was her experience of fear for me. Like knowing that society is aggressive towards queer people, and therefore she didn't want to indulge. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but it basically like centered that experience. It's like I might have reacted the way that I did because I was scared for you. But it's like,
Yeah, no, that makes
but
sense.
like, yeah, I'm going through it though.
right.
Like that's full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
And
not
it's like
about
it's great
you.
because that's the other thing. It's like I wouldn't cure my queerness, but it unarguably makes it fucking difficult.
Yes.
And like I wouldn't erase all of my memories and ancestry of like Jewish suffering,
Right.
but it makes like it sucks. Like it's generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The goal shouldn't be to cure it. It should be to fucking fix society so that
Yes.
like, yeah, I mean,
Like the conditions like that don't need a cure. If we're
Mhm.
talking about something that is like wholly destructive to
Right.
the body,
fatal to itself and not fatal because you're going to get bashed by
Mhm.
somebody.
right. That is like, let's focus on a cure
Uh-huh.
for those things. Let's not like don't mess around with a cure for autism. Like, or even for HEDS, we've seen like,
Oh yeah.
oh, they're working on studies to cure it. You're not going to cure it.
Right.
If you were born and you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. End of story. Nobody is going to rewire your genetics.
Mhm.
And even if they could,
Would you want
still
them to?
have, well, not even that. Like, you still have all of the damage that was done.
Yes.
End of story. Like,
Yeah, and also
That's
I
it.
don't like the idea of being like CRISPR in post. Like
Right.
that sounds.
well, and I just,
I'm
for-
very sensitive to eugenics
Yeah.
because of like
Well, 'cause
my
it's
ancestry.
gross.
And I mean a lot of like marginalized groups
yeah,
have that
it's
connection.
gross.
Like it is really fucking gross, and it is like a solution that especially the United States has employed to deal with disabled people. And it doesn't like mitigate suffering.
Right.
It enhances it.
Yeah.
So any focus on cure in that way is like so harmful.
Well, and like Summer was saying, like, would you want to?
It's part of my
At
identity
this
now.
point in your life, would you cure EDS?
No.
Because it's like, it's wholly a part of you.
Even
because it's
Sophie
been wholly a
would
part
answer
of
that
you.
way, which is
Yeah.
interesting because I've asked her, I was like, would you rather have
A dad
Right.
who didn't have EDS.
right? And she
Yeah.
said no because I wouldn't be the same person,
Mhm.
and she
Yeah.
knows that. Like,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like, and this is what we've learned is like the best people in the world are the most traumatized people.
Yes.
The best people in the world are the people who have been through it.
Yeah.
The best people in the world are the people who have suffered because they understand what it is to suffer
Mhm.
and they understand what it is to feel alone.
Mhm.
And then the want is to make other people not feel so alone.
Yes. I don't buy the whole, hurt people shit writ large. Like sometimes
It's still a choice.
But like yeah, it when people employ it as an excuse for
Yeah.
behavior, it's like
Well, but it's not
I-
because you're like, look at all
yeah.
these people who
I
are
don't
also hurt. who
care
didn't
how
hurt
like
people.
your parents treated you. Like
Yeah.
you're treating me this way now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's on you.
Well, and that's exactly what we're like, generational trauma
Yes.
Mhm.
and breaking the cycle. We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, where we talked about like, because you were down on yourself because of the productivity
I
stuff.
don't know what you're talking about.
And then
Never
we
happened.
talked about you are doing stuff. You are
Nah.
raising emotionally intelligent, wonderful, empathetic children who are just getting ready to be the best people.
Right.
I'm just going to keep ignoring your nonsense.
No, it's fine. Go
because,
on.
You know,
Just talk over me.
gonna.
I think that's a really big part of it, though. Like,
Mhm.
just the. I don't know how to say this in a way that makes sense, so tell me if it doesn't make any sense. But, like, trying to think about, like, if my childhood wasn't the way that it was, would I be the person that I am?
Right.
Would I be, like,
Mhm.
more successful, less successful? Would it, like, if these bad things didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who I would be, and I don't necessarily want to find out. And that's
It's-
not
Yeah.
that's not like a victimizing myself
Right,
thing.
right.
No,
You're
it's
like,
you
I'm-
are who you
Yes.
are, the good and the bad.
Yes. And I feel like, and this is something that I talked about with a student recently, who, like, a heavily traumatized student who, like, talks about it kind of in spurts and then will not talk about it at all for, like, a long time.
Yeah.
But we talked about the idea that, like, you are your whole self, and, like, having these things not happen to you would not necessarily make things better. It would just make them different.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's essentially asking you, would you have rather not been born?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, because you would be a wholly different person.
Mhm.
You would be an entirely different, like, it would be an entirely different
Yeah.
situation. And it's the same thing as, like, thinking about if I hadn't met you, I would not be where I am right now.
Oh, my life
Right.
is so much better.
Well, okay, so
I'm gonna throw something at you.
there's also that piece where when we talk about like generational trauma and breaking the cycle,
Mhm.
it's still a choice, right? Like, but why do people make that choice? People make that choice in this like bubble of, well, I survived it and I'm fine, therefore
Yes.
it must be okay. Because if they acknowledge it to be traumatic, they have to face their trauma.
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
writing about this the
And
other
people
day.
don't.
Mm-hmm. That's really the fear, right? I wrote about this the other day. It's like I was getting down on myself about just like this fantasy idea that, like, A, things are better, which I'm not entirely convinced about, and B, because things are better, I should feel better,
Mm.
Right.
right? And it's like our problems are like so unique in human history that it's like
Yeah.
and also it's like I don't really want to feel grateful that I'm not getting bashed by default in the street when I'm still being
Right.
legislated
Like
as
you-
to whether I have a right to exist.
You should not be
Like I'm
asked
allowed
to
to
be grateful for the bare
afraid,
minimum.
right? And it's like I didn't fucking experience any of that shit, so it's like I can't say for sure, but it's like Marsha P. Johnson wouldn't want me to settle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I was thinking about this the other day too. So I was getting down on myself about it, and that was kind of a reasoning that I picked up for myself. But I wrote also about, like, even if you didn't go through it firsthand, you were born, were raised, knowing that something happened in the past when you had no control over it.
Yeah.
And the rest of your life is watching the perpetrators forgive themselves for it.
Yes. That's an interesting take.
Yeah.
I think that's more so like a
Well,
go for it.
oh my gosh, that is such an interesting take because that's exactly what it is. Like you see all the time, and that's why we come down to these lines of like, oh, we can't talk about the bad things that happened anymore because it's better now. We fixed it.
But it's like, how do we know that we fixed it?
But we didn't. We just don't want to face it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we face it, we have to acknowledge the wrongdoing.
I remember you said,
and we have to stop doing the
Right.
wrongdoing.
I remember you said something on an episode that was like it's more covert, and that like things are better, but it's also like I'm catching myself talking in a mode where it's like I have to explain around things being better as if they were better, that would be bad.
Right.
Like they can also be better. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think it's a measure of, because I don't want to speak for anybody, but I feel like we kind of relate on this. Like, it can be better. That's cool. But for me, that triggers like a fear of like, okay, then I'm not like good enough, or I'm not like doing enough. Like, if I'm struggling in the same way that my ancestors did, but I have more spoons because the society around me is better,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like I am lazy, I'm unworthy, I'm not doing enough.
See, but here's the thing. I don't think it's
It's also impossible to gauge.
like covert is an interesting. I'm trying to put this thought together.
Covert 19.
Gone out the window. Done.
Yeah, what were you saying?
Well, I was just thinking that like we're in this point where the people who are privileged tell themselves things are better.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we come up against doubt.
Yes. Do you want to know another thing too? I don't want to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Another part of it too is that, so in like the information age, we know that there are enough resources and then there's enough money to cure most human suffering. The UN talked to Elon Musk and said, hey, it will take this much money
Mm-hmm.
to end world hunger, and you have this much money.
With like plenty
Yeah.
to spare.
Right. And that's the part of it too.
But if they ended suffering, there would be no profit in suffering.
Right, that's the thing. So it's like, I think about that a lot too, in the sense of, sorry, I'm picking up a stem.
No, you're fine.
Whoa. A little bit of a Doppler effect going. Okay, anyway. Yeah, but so I think that's also a very unique part of the pain too. It's
Mhm.
that we know that there are solutions that, not literally overnight, but like pretty fucking close, could basically like solve climate change, solve world hunger, solve
Yeah.
like all of these like institutional fucking problems.
Right. But because it's not profitable,
Right.
it's not on the table.
And people like have it and are hoarding that solution. Like that would suck. Like if I was in prison and like I was just there and then just like all my shit was like given to me by some like invisible person, that would be a lot easier to deal with than seeing the fucking guard with his keys jangling walk down
Mm-hmm.
and tease me with it
Mhm.
and then walk away. That's kind of, I hope that's not insensitive that I'm like using that analogy, but that's kind of the way that I imagine it in my head.
Well, it is. It's a societal prison.
Right.
We are caught in this loop where, and people want to believe it because if they don't believe it, then they have to acknowledge the wrong, and they have to acknowledge that what they had in their head isn't the case.
Mhm.
It's that like battle between the white picket fence and reality. Right.
Damn.
I think another part of that, especially for like when we're talking about parents and like older generations not wanting to acknowledge either fuck ups or that like it has nothing to do with you, this is just what life is.
Mm-hmm.
Like thinking about like my dad is very much the kind of person that's like, life has always been shitty and it's always going to be shitty,
Yeah.
and if you try to make it not shitty, you're just wasting time that you could be using to like go to work and go do all of these things.
Just grind, and if you put your nose to the grind,
and if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and
Mhm.
all of this shit that
it'll
doesn't
be
exist,
better. It'll be
And
better.
and you will know your life is better only because the material life of other people's around you is worse.
Mhm.
Yes.
That is your metric for if your life is good. Not if you're
Yes.
fulfilled or happy, but because these people have it worse.
Well, it's
Yes.
What
the
it comes
same
back to.
reason that like, why is it so easy to walk by homeless people all the time, and so many homeless people all the time?
like it isn't
Like,
for me. I know.
no,
that
it's
much.
awful.
Like I
Like,
think
my
about it all the
guts
time.
wrench constantly.
Yeah,
but like, what do you do? And we all have this like, I mean, generationally, there's a mindset of like, oh no, this is just the way it is.
yes,
Which is so interesting because if you look at the honey badger generation coming up and Gen Z leading the way, it's like
Mhm.
that same thing. Like millennials open the door and y'all are having at it. Let's go.
Mhm.
But they're asking why
Yeah.
for so many things that like we were just like, oh,
Right. Because here's the
that's
thing.
just the way it is. I
We
don't
have
know.
the statistics. Last time I checked, there were 36 vacant houses to every one homeless person. That's not the way that it is. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly didn't fucking make the choice.
Mhm.
These powerful people did.
Yep.
So why did they? Like, and that's like the tantalizing part. It's like, if it truly was just like, suffering and it, comes from God or it's just comes from this uncaring universe or whatever, that makes it a lot easier to deal with
yes,
because then you just immerse yourself in it and you come out the other side a little like
and you
you
rationalize.
polished, right?
Mhm.
Right.
But it's like this fucking dude this bald asshole. Not to be like bald phobic, but I'm just talking about Jeff Bezos. If you're bald, I'm sure you're gorgeous, unless you're Jeff Bezos. Then, then it's like, this doesn't come from something. This isn't like worth it. This doesn't separate the wheat from the chaff. This doesn't do anything. It's just hoarding.
And I think going back to like having to adapt to a world that's not made for you, it's the same things. Because suddenly when the world does not work around you and you have to like figure out how to slot in a weird way, then you start asking, well, why was it built this way in the first place then?
Right.
If so many people cannot access these things.
Right.
And that's why it turned, but then that gets twisted, I feel like. And I don't know if this is a universal experience, you can tell me if it's not, but like that questioning of like, okay, it's really hard for me to do this thing. I don't understand why it's structured this way. Then it's labeled as, well, you're whining and you're asking for too much and you're asking for too many
for
things.
handouts.
You're asking for handouts. You're asking for you to be like somebody to hold your hand through things. And it's like, no, it's not that I can't do it. It's that I shouldn't have to.
Yes.
I think about this all the time. How can anybody think that you can earn $1 billion?
Right.
Unless
Well,
you're
because
4,000 years old, you
that's the
can't
thing,
earn
is
$1
that,
billion.
Like
You steal it.
they're told this story and they want to cling to that story in spite of everything because the story gives them a sense of like hope and predictability where there is none.
To convince yourself that there isn't a solution to the problem.
Right. Well, and it's
Makes it
that
easier to
same
deal
thing of
with.
like trying to avoid their own trauma. They justify the trauma and then repeat the trauma.
And then sorry. Were you gonna?
No, you're good.
Okay. So I also wanted to, because you made a point about, you realize that these systems are in place that are built either not for you or literally against you, because you go through it. And it makes me think, like, to give credit to other generations, it's like there have been plenty of activist generations, Gen X and God forbid, but like fucking baby boomers, like supposedly, I read it in textbooks. But the curious thing is that like if Gen Z, if more of Gen Z is like socialist radical than like any other generation, part of it then is the product of the environment. The proof is in itself that it's like we're seeing it because it affects us more. Because like the clock is ticking down, because we see fucking climate change, because we see all these solutions in people's hands that they're withholding and telling you that you're not doing enough to earn it. They're playing fucking keep away like bullies.
Yeah. Well, that's the other part is like you see it more, right?
Yeah.
It's not that, and this is another piece of the story that they're telling is like, oh, autism diagnoses are being handed out like candy, or ADHD diagnoses are being handed out like candy, or EDS is super rare. It's not at all. It's not. And we're realizing these things, but people that like the story becomes that like, oh, it's new. It's not new. It's just now being acknowledged. It's just now being like addressed,
and am I supposed
and
to
not
be...
even appropriately,
Right.
and not even for everybody.
Right.
And we're realizing that more of our population has all these problems, and so now it is time to restructure society because it doesn't work. It does not work.
Yeah.
I feel like type A is the minority here when it comes to what is functional.
And I feel like it always has been.
Yes.
It's just been
We were lied to.
the expectation is that everybody who is not type A is forced to mask all the time.
Yes.
And then the people who are type A are constantly like, I don't know why you...
Or like, none of that is happening and I don't believe that. And like,
Yes.
I can't imagine it. Or, oh, I can't believe it. That's what bothers me the most is when people are like, I can't believe that happened. And you're like, really? Use your imagination. Really?
Oh, actually, yeah.
You
This
can't
was a fiction
believe
exercise. I can't.
What?
I was participating in the oral tradition of fiction storytelling. I wasn't actually unpacking trauma to you. You caught me. You did it.
You got me.
Chime in here. You've been very quiet.
I'm just
I know
feeling
you're
very
listening.
shitty.
I'm sorry.
You're valid. You're listening.
I'm trying.
Oh yeah, like in the meantime, while we wait to destructure things, how do we make it work?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's different for. Oh, Jesus Christ. I think that's different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think, everybody comes to their own solutions. I hate the sound of it, but it's true. I mean, I don't think there's like a one size fits all way to.
Well,
I mean,
that's the thing.
literally-
That's
I
not
mean,
something you can just
yeah.
dispense advice on. That's going to be like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
Actually, I think we can all agree we need to do more capitalism.
Oh, yes.
It's because
Yes.
of regulation, and it's disclaimer: I am Jewish. I'm allowed to say it. The Jews. That everything's falling apart.
We can only do more capitalism if I get paid for being alive. That's the job that I'm doing now, so I need to be paid
I'm
being alive.
So unironically down for fucking what is it? Universal basic income.
Mhm.
Yeah, like unironically, like holy
Yeah.
shit.
Because that's the thing is like, and I ask myself this all the time, and we talk about it all the time, and I have to remind myself I don't know what the future is going to look like. But even after, like, when a therapist looks at you and goes, do you have to work that job at that capacity? And you're like, what are my options?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
What are my options? Starve to death? Lose my house? What are my options?
Yeah.
I have to.
Did you say that?
No.
Oh, I was like, I
Should've.
want to see what.
Well, I
what the
told her I
response
had
would have
to
been.
work full time, or because I needed money.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, well, do you have to work that job? And I was like, I love my job. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
It's
And
only
she was
what
like, oh,
What
well,
you're
okay.
trained for and comfortable with
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
care about.
Well, and I had to
and-
explain that it would be worse anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
I have way more leeway in this job than I would
Well, and
anywhere
passion
else.
for the job.
Yeah. And I'm good at my job, and everybody knows I'm good at my job. And that helps to, like, keep my spot, but also I have to play this game of, like, not necessarily masking, but trying to, like, do things when it's convenient.
Yes.
And that is so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing for me, like, coping and getting along in the world that's not made for me is, like, I had to learn to be really flexible with things, and I had to learn how to, and now I'm happier in my life because I learned how to get loud.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to, like, I could say ow when something hurts me, and it wasn't like a big thing. And I learned that, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it for attention.
Right.
I'm doing it so I can get it out of me, and that helps.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that helps, and this is cheesy, but like, it's important to find people who aren't going to make you feel bad about the way you have to exist as a person. Because
all you need is love.
we're gonna get copyright striked again, except this time by the Beatles.
I'm
Anyway.
such a good singer.
But like, I feel like it's very easy to settle in regards to, like, finding people who are, like, not being mean to you about it, but there's a very big difference between people who aren't being mean to you about it and people who are
Mhm.
actually, like, trying to understand
Mm-hmm.
what the situation is.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, a lot of my, like, growing up and growing out of friendships was realizing, oh, it's not that you actually care, it's just that you're just not telling me that you think I'm annoying. Like, I can tell that's what you think, but you just because you aren't saying it doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
you're a great person to be around.
Right. Or the people who, like, shame you for your state of being.
Yes.
You're like, ugh, again.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, you were fine this morning.
You were fine.
You were
this
fine
morning.
last time I saw you.
You were fine
Like,
5
you
minutes
don't
ago.
look sick.
Or like the
Oh, isn't that convenient for you?
it's
You're like,
always
"Shut up."
it's always something, or the well, but we really like I didn't feel good and I still came in, and it's
Yeah.
like your version of not
You're
feeling
being
good.
flaky.
Yes, your version of not feeling good is like
My Saturday.
my
That's
like
my
that's
life.
just what Tuesday is.
Imagine an air traffic controller being like, well, your plane was like fine last time I checked. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I had to learn to get loud, and I had to learn to do it in a shameless way. And I realized that everybody was suffering and doing it quietly so that no one else could see that everyone was suffering. And if we could just all see each other,
Mm-hmm.
we would all feel less alone, and we
Yeah.
could be more open with what is happening in our society, because we live here also, and we have to exist in this space because it was designed that way. but also don't tell me it can't be changed because it's been done that way. It's like 200 years old. Calm down. You are a blip on the cosmic scale. Stop it.
Really.
It can change. It will change. Stop it. Don't settle for nonsense. And that's the thing is like we're being asked to settle and be grateful for the bare minimum.
It's not just settling. You have to be
you
should be grateful that you haven't been fired. You should be grateful that you weren't kicked out of college. You should be grateful that you found people who accommodate. And it's like I don't need to be grateful for people not bullying me.
Horrible to me. Yeah.
I shouldn't be asked to be grateful to like be able to exist and like have my life.
Yeah.
Because that's the game that I'm currently dealing with family wise, which is like, well, you should be grateful that you were able to get out. And it's like,
or like, oh, someone else had it much worse and you should be grateful it's not that bad.
I feel bad for them. That contributes to my pain. The fact that other people have it worse.
Yes.
Yeah. That's like the whole point of like
empathy.
Yeah. And overcoming privilege is like realizing that people have it worse than you and that it like could be your fault if you don't give a shit. But if you do and you actively, try to fix it, then it's like that, the world is better off once we demolish these systems.
Yes.
But until then, like, it is painful.
Yes.
It doesn't, like, at all equate to the people actually going through it firsthand. Right. But, like, it is fucking painful.
It's that idea that, like, healing is painful. But,
yeah.
And that's why we avoid it.
And the other part of that is the, like, competition element of everything has to be, there has to be a competition to everything, and you have to, like, there always has to be, like,
oh, I'm making a lot of money, and I have 2.5 kids, and a white picket fence, and a dog, and it's a golden retriever. Like,
yeah, I cut my third kid
let's
in half.
measure, right?
You have to get
and
it
I gave
right.
it to
Measure
the other
success
family
by the white picket fence, yeah.
Vertically or horizontally?
I mean, different strokes for different folks. I
Calm
think
down
I
there,
think
Solomon.
so for God, that is such a good question. Holy shit, I am like so caught off guard.
What are you gonna do with your half a baby? I'm concerned about that part. Thank you very much.
You hung up on the details.
You should do more self-care,
I know.
actually.
I am going to die.
Hey,
out
I mean,
of
at least you're not
spite.
half a kid.
Speaking of dying,
I know.
I'm,
I'm
like, in
hurting
pain.
bad.
Mm-hmm.
Should we
bad.
wrap it up, friends? We've been at it for
We can wrap it
like
up.
3 hours and 50 minutes. So
Whoa.
let's
Mm-hmm.
wrap
That's like the
it
length
up,
of King
babes.
Kong.
Because I'm hurting
The
and
film.
you're hurting
Yeah.
and you're hurting.
You know the film.
Yeah.
The film?
King Kong.
Yeah.
Jack Black's in it.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I think.
You're like, just
Is Jack Black?
just
Yeah, he's
stop
in it. He's in it.
Okay, cool.
Just
You're
stop
right.
it. Yeah.
I'll stop for walking.
But yeah, like, it's not made for us. And we have to figure out how to work with it.
And part of figuring out how to work with it is talking about it.
Yes.
And not feeling like you are stuck living in a silo where you are the only person who is experiencing things.
Mhm.
And that's hard. It's not easy to like push yourself out of the thing because the first few times you do it, or the first like 3 million times you do it, it's going to feel like I'm suddenly pushing the burden of how I'm feeling onto somebody else.
I've spread it. I was handling it better on my own because then I didn't have to deal with the fact that other people deal with it and feel bad about it.
That's
But
the
it's
other
worth
thing.
it.
You don't want people like worrying about you all the time. And
Or
those are
pitying
my
you.
options. Yeah, exactly. So I have you and Diana, who I can trust to be like, dude, bro, do your thing, please. Like, what are you doing? And then other people are like, panic. And then other people are like, again. And those are the people I come up against. It's great. But yeah, get loud.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stop being loud just because other people are uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. It's like art.
We're
It is meant to
uncomfortable all the
comfort
time.
the
Right.
disturbed and disturb the comfortable. And I think that's part of this like societal shift is disturb the comfortable.
Mm.
Don't let them be
Yes.
comfortable anymore.
So as a synopsis, we live in a society.
And it's
Well said.
terrible.
My face like starts getting white and green and red and shit. I start getting
This is
all
the art.
anti-feminist.
This is the start of the joke arc.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, on that note, shall we wrap it up, my friends?
Yep.
Yes.
That was a really good conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was all right.
I talk too much, and
No, it
he
was really
just does not talk at all. He
He's
just
He not feel good.
Yeah, no.
I know.
You
He
did
not
great.
feel good.
I tried.
Well, it was a good conversation.
It was a really
It was
good
very
conversation.
interesting. I always love these conversations. They're great. So, if you enjoyed it, please leave us a like, maybe share, maybe subscribe. Is good. Is good.
Send me your number if you're a girl and over 18.
Podcast?
That is our demographic.
We'll just have all the ads together. It's great. All right. You know the drill. Thank you so much for coming along. We really appreciate it. Make sure that you are kind to yourself and kind to others, and we will see you in the next one.